Hi folks, Eagles beat reporter Mike Kay here for NJ Advanced Media. This is the No Huddle Show Quick Hit. The Eagles continue to monitor a handful of notable injuries heading into their Week 13 matchup against the Miami Dolphins. During his Wednesday press conference, Eagles coach Doug Peterson offered updates on running back Jordan Howard, right tackle Lane Johnson, and wide receivers Alshon Jeffery and Nelson Agholor. Howard is currently not cleared for contact. He's been a limited participant in practice over the past 2 weeks. And the Eagles are concerned about him regaining strength in his shoulder before trotting him out into the field. Doug Peterson says that he is trending in the right direction. He's made progress with the injury, but again, it's about that shoulder strength. The Eagles don't want to throw him out there if he's feeling weak in that injury and in that area of his body, obviously, because he does have to run through tackles and pick up really hard yards. His aggressive style is going to lead to a lot of contact with that shoulder. Now, if he is unable to play in Week 13, rookie Miles Sanders and Jay Ajayi will continue to shoulder the load in his absence. Both players had their positive moments against the Seahawks in Week 12. They'll look to make some progress moving forward now that Ajayi's finally had some contact, gotten up to that football speed. Hopefully he can contribute against his former team, the Miami Dolphins. Now, Lane Johnson has been cleared for practice for Wednesday's session. He will get a full week of practice in. That said, he hasn't been fully cleared from the league's concussion protocol. That said, having a full week of practice should help Johnson get cleared in time for Sunday's game. That's a positive outlook. Now, if he cannot play, Big V, Hal Vaitai will probably play at right tackle. The Eagles still plan to cross-train Andre Dillard at right tackle, but he probably won't start. He'll probably serve as more of a swing tackle. Now, in positive news, Doug Peterson said that Nelson Agholor and Alshon Jeffery will both be full participants this week in practice. That's very important because the Eagles are 5-2 with Jeffery in the lineup for an entire game, and the squad is just 0-4 without Jeffery playing a major role. Now, clearly, Jeffery has struggled this season. He's averaging a career-low 10.4 yards per catch. That's a problem. However, his influence on the lineup is still there. He's probably the only above-average receiver left on the Eagles roster. Speaking of that depth chart, though, practice squad call-up Greg Ward and second-round rookie J.J. Arcega-Whiteside showed enough in Week 12 that the coaching staff has confidence in them moving forward. They'll see larger roles even if Jeffery and Agholor get cleared in time for this week's game against the Dolphins. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside will probably play more on the outside. He's made a pair of pretty impressive catches in jump ball situations over the last couple of weeks. That's more of what he did at Stanford. Expect for him to be used heavily in the red zone. Now, Greg Ward can play in the slot, which frees Nelson Agholor up to move around a little bit. Agholor and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside will probably rotate a little bit on the outside. Agholor will still see his role on the inside, but you'll see more of Ward moving in there a little bit. Ward is more of a true backup slot receiver than anyone they had on the roster before. That will move Matt Collins probably just to a special teams role. His snaps greatly diminished over the past 2 weeks. He hasn't caught a pass in September. I think the Eagles are about to pull the plug on that project on offense. That said, having Jeffery back in the lineup and having Agholor back in the lineup when they're facing a Dolphins team that they should, on paper, obliterate is really, really important because if the Eagles win this game in a nail-biter, it'll say a lot more about the Eagles than it will the Dolphins. They're still very much alive in the NFC East race. The Cowboys are only 1 game ahead of them, but if the Eagles handle their business and win 5 straight games, they'll have beaten the Cowboys and also won the NFC East because while the Cowboys have a 4-0 record in the division right now, they still have to face the Eagles in Philadelphia, and then they have their Week 17 matchup against the Washington Redskins. Now, they're probably going to beat the Redskins. That would make them 5-0. But before that, they're going to play the Eagles. If the Eagles beat them and the Eagles win all of their division games, both teams will be 5-1 in the division, and that'll move on to the next tiebreaker, which the Eagles actually own the advantage in, which is common opponents. The Cowboys have lost to the Jets, who the Eagles defeated. They're about to play the Bills on Thanksgiving. That could be another loss. The Bills have been very competitive this year. So it's an interesting situation because the Cowboys will also play the Bears, who the Eagles defeated. So the Eagles are looking at a situation where they do need to run the table unless the Cowboys completely fall off. Having Agholor and Jeffery back in the lineup, along with Lane Johnson, would help them immensely in that challenge. Now, another guy to monitor from the injury standpoint is Craven Leblanc, who had his 21-day practice window activated on Tuesday. LeBlanc will get a full week of practice and could potentially play against the Dolphins on Sunday. The Eagles did something very similar with Jalen Mills coming off the physically unable to perform list, where he practiced in his practice window and then they activated him to the main roster on Friday before traveling to Dallas. Now, the Eagles don't have to open up an extra roster spot for LeBlanc, as Jordan Matthews was released on Monday. Matthews spent 2 games here in his third stint with the team, didn't really offer a whole lot. He caught 4 passes for 33 yards, wasn't very impressive despite, his chemistry with Carson Wentz in the past. Moving forward, though, like I said, Ward and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside should have bigger roles. LeBlanc, getting back to him, if he were to play, he might actually move former second-round pick Sidney Jones to the inactive list. The Eagles would then have 7 corners on their roster. You look at, the starters are Jalen Mills and Ronald Darby. Their top backup is Rasul Douglas. In the slot, you have Avonte Maddox starting, and LeBlanc would be his immediate backup. And then Craig James, who they signed earlier this season, he's been a pretty good special teams ace. He's probably going to fill the gunner role left behind by Rudy Ford, who was placed on IR last week. LeBlanc will also play on special teams as well. But when you really look at that group, Sidney Jones doesn't really have a role. He's behind Rasul Douglas on the outside. He's behind LeBlanc at the nickel corner spot, and he can't play special teams. So that'll be something worth monitoring over the next couple of days. The Eagles seem to be getting a lot of guys back. Jordan Howard's probably the iffy one of the injured quartet that's on the active roster. Then you've got LeBlanc as well. We'll continue to monitor Howard, Johnson, Jeffery, and Agholor throughout the week. For all of our injury updates and coverage of the Eagles, turn to the sports section of NJ.com. And remember to download the No Huddle Show podcast wherever you get your podcasts.